Nina Simmons falls 3 stories. Her pelvis is shattered. In the emergency room, she consumes 2 units of blood in minutes, but her blood pressure remains stagnant. Outside, an ice storm halts all medical deliveries. The hospital runs a trauma simulation. The algorithm processes her injuries and issues a 7% survival probability. Based on this data, the surgical lead orders Nina move to the ICU for comfort care to preserve the dwindling blood supply for more viable patients. Dr. Halstead sees Nina's nephew, a child already orphaned by a car accident. He defies the protocol. He wheels the patient to interventional radiology, but the specialist fails to access the ruptured vessel and abandons the case. Halstead forces a second attempt in the hybrid room with Dr. Song. They use the hospital's last remaining blood products. As Nina's vitals drop, Song threads a catheter into the left iliac artery and deploys a metal coil. The internal hemorrhage stops. Nina wakes up. The patient's survival triggers an immediate confrontation. A senior surgeon berates Halstead for exhausting 40 units of blood on a single, low-probability trauma during a resource crisis. He states that any deficits in other patients are now Halstead's personal responsibility. Halstead accepts the blame in silence. He watches the aunt hold her nephew's hand. The algorithm predicted death based on historical data, but it could not account for the manual intervention that kept the boy's last remaining family alive. Connor Rhodes accuses Ava Becker of murdering his father. Dr. Latham confirms the suspicion through laboratory analysis. He finds trace amounts of chromium in the insulin batch used for the killing, making the drug traceable to its source. Ava realizes the forensic evidence has trapped her. She confronts Connor in a trauma room. Instead of surrendering, she picks up a scalpel and severs her own carotid artery in front of him. Blood sprays across the walls as Connor catches her collapsing body. He immediately initiates emergency protocols, pushing IV fluids, and prepping for surgery. In the operating room, the tension is absolute. Connor performs a lateral thoracotomy using a spreader to open her chest and manually massage her heart. He orders 10 units of blood and 10 units of plasma. He injects epinephrine directly into the cardiac muscle and applies internal paddles to shock her heart. The monitor remains a flatline. Dr. Latham calls the time of death at 16:22. Connor stands over the woman who killed his father and then committed suicide to ensure he would never forget her. The trauma is irreversible. Connor finds Dr. Latham and submits his resignation on the spot. He refuses to offer an explanation. He turns his back on the operating room and walks out of the hospital, leaving his career and the blood-stained scrubs behind. David Bridges arrives at the emergency room with a ruptured spleen and massive internal bleeding following a high-speed car crash. His parents, devout Jehovah's Witnesses, immediately present a no-blood card and refuse a life-saving transfusion. They stand by the bed and pray while their son's blood pressure collapses. Dr. Halstead refuses to accept the medical stalemate. He reviews the toxicology report and discovers David's blood alcohol level is 3 times the legal limit, accompanied by traces of marijuana. Halstead then unbuttons David's gown to reveal a Holy Trinity tattoo on his chest, a symbol that directly violates the core doctrine of his parents' faith. Halstead presents these findings to the surgical team as evidence that David has abandoned his religion. He argues the no blood card is an outdated document signed when David was a minor and no longer represents the patient's current life. Based on this logic, the doctors override the parents' instructions. They rush David into surgery and administer a full blood transfusion. Believing their son is now spiritually tainted, the parents leave the hospital. When David regains consciousness, the medical success results in a total psychological collapse. He reveals the tattoo was a youthful mistake he intended to remove, and the alcohol was a lapse in a journey toward repentance. He was desperate to return to his faith. By forcing the blood into his veins, the doctors have permanently excommunicated him from his family and his God. David screams in his bed, realizing that his physical survival has cost him his eternal salvation. A domino transplant binds 2 families in a life-for-a-life agreement. The plan is clinical. One family provides a kidney to save the other's son, and in exchange, they receive a compatible organ for their own. But the arrangement shatters when Dan Schiller dies on the operating table from sudden complications. The medical team performs chest compressions until the lead surgeon calls the time of death. Bill Schiller, the grieving father, immediately attempts to void the contract. He holds medical power of attorney and issues a formal retraction of consent while his wife is still under anesthesia. He demands the surgeons stop the procedure. To Bill, the deal died with his son. He refuses to let his wife lose an organ to save a stranger when his own child is gone. Inside the operating room, Dr. Marcel stands over the donor. The kidney is already detached and sitting on ice. The hospital's ethics committee and legal counsel convene instantly to resolve the deadlock. They review the signed agreements. The committee delivers a cold, factual verdict. Because the kidney has already been removed from the donor's body, the hospital is now its legal caretaker. They rule that the donor's original intent was to save a life, and that mandate remains binding. Bill's grief does not grant him the right to terminate a life-saving process already in motion. The hospital overrides the father's retraction and orders the transplant to proceed. Mike, the second patient, receives the organ. One family prepares a funeral, while the other receives a second chance at life, forced through by a clinical, legal mandate. Natalie treats a sick infant named Sophie and uncovers a series of lies. Philip, her current partner, is exposed as a pathological liar. He claimed to have no family, but his sister reveals he abandoned his own daughter at the hospital. Philip has even signed a DNR order instructing doctors not to save the child if her heart stops. Natalie refuses to comply. During a complex heart procedure, Sophie develops pulmonary edema. Natalie ignores the legal threats and implements VA ECMO to keep the girl's heart beating. The high-stakes medical crisis triggers a breakthrough in Natalie's memory. The fog from her accident clears. She realizes Philip manipulated her during her recovery and that she had cruelly discarded her ex, Will. Overcome with guilt, Natalie finds Will on the hospital rooftop. She cries and apologizes, confessing that she finally remembers the truth and still loves him. She asks for a second chance, but Will remains cold. He tells her that their history is nothing but a cycle of hurting one another. He admits that after she ordered him to stay away, his life actually improved. He looks at her without a trace of longing and states that for the first time, he feels free. Will walks away, leaving Natalie alone in the dark. She has regained her memory only to realize she has permanently lost the man she loves. Joy collapses on a treadmill and is rushed to the emergency room. She tells Dr. Choi she has been dieting strictly for 2 months but cannot lose any weight. Her fiance, Max, stands by her bed as the doctors run initial tests. The results show no abnormalities, but seconds later, Joy's body stiffens and she suffers a violent, prolonged seizure. The medical team scrambles to stabilize her as her vitals crash. New lab reports reveal a lethal concentration of ammonia in her bloodstream. Dr. Choi diagnoses Joy with a rare genetic condition called urea cycle disorder. In her body, excess protein does not build muscle. It turns into a neurotoxin. He explains that a massive spike in protein intake triggered the seizure. Joy is confused, insisting she only drinks green smoothies and has avoided meat entirely. Sensing a discrepancy, Dr. Choi confronts Max privately. He states that the medical facts do not align with Joy's story. Max eventually breaks. He confesses to secretly stirring large doses of protein powder into Joy's smoothies every day. He admits he wanted to sabotage her weight loss because he feared that if she became thin, she would leave him for someone else. Dr. Choi informs Joy that Max's actions constitute a physical assault and offers to call the police. Despite the fact that her fiance's insecurity nearly killed her, Joy refuses to press charges. She chooses to interpret his lethal manipulation as a desperate form of love. She forgives him immediately, leaving the hospital with the man who systematically poisoned her. 54-year-old Mary